Hi, this is Raj Christian, and this is The Barbarians, my podcast. And you can find me on Substack, Spotify, and YouTube. And please subscribe. A War Without a Purpose by Raj Christian. Operation Epic Fury didn't topple a regime. It didn't stop a nuclear program. It didn't break Iran's resolve. But it broke Meenab. Before sunrise, Meenab was a quiet coastal town. Fishermen prepping nets, children walking to school, mothers sweeping courtyards. Nothing about that morning suggested it would become the first chapter of a war. Then, the sky split open. The first strike hit the elementary school. The second tore through a market street. The third collapsed a row of homes where families were still asleep. When the dust settled, Meenab was no longer a town. It was a scar. Because while Meenab burned, Gaza was already burning. For months, Gaza had been living under bombardment, neighborhoods flattened, hospitals overwhelmed, families displaced again and again. The images from Gaza had already ignited global outrage, protests from London to Jakarta, and a sense that the Middle East was being pushed past its breaking point. So when Meenab was hit, it didn't feel like a new war. It felt like the widening of an aid one. Inside Iran, something happened that intelligence analysts had not predicted. A fractured nation, divided by politics, protests, and economic strain, suddenly fused into a single voice. In Tehran, Shiraz, Mashhad, and Qum, millions poured into the streets. Not hundreds, not thousands. 14 million, according to local officials and international reporters. And they shouted a phrase that ricocheted across the world, a phrase directed at the leaders they believed responsible for the strike, a phrase that made headlines from London to Amman to Kuala Lumpur, a phrase born from grief, not strategy. Crowds chanted death to Donald Trump and death to Benjamin Netanyahu, not as policy analysis, not as diplomatic language, but as raw public fury, the kind that erupts when children die and explanations fail. These chants were widely reported by international media covering the protests, reflecting the scale of public anger. Meenab's destruction collided with Gaza's suffering, and together they formed a single narrative: children dying in wars justified by shifting fears and political calculations. You can find this podcast on Substack, Spotify, and YouTube, and subscribe. Thanks.